Okay, started to record. Someone else is coming. Good. We have like 28 students in this Google Meet right now. 28, that's including me, so okay, 27. But only like what, 22 students are enrolled. Who else is here? That's very funny, very interesting. Anyway, so we are ready to start, yes? So, just for those who've just joined a couple of minutes ago, a couple of you guys joined a couple of minutes ago, what we've done is we've talked about annuities. Let me start sharing that Excel file again. So we talked about annuities. There are different kinds of annuities, ordinary annuity and annuity due. All the description is on the screen in front of you. Next time, try not to be late so that you don't miss the explanations. And we've looked at a few examples of how to calculate rate, future values and present values for both ordinary and annuity due. And we've seen the differences between PVs and FVs of both of the annuities, and we've talked about the reasons for those differences. All right. Let's move on to something similar to annuity. Similar but different. Similar but different. What does it mean, similar but different? Anyway, I don't know. So, which is a perpetuity? Perpetuity. Okay. So perpetuity is a regular payment that is paid over regular periods of time. So far it looks a lot like annuity, but the difference here is forever, 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 forever. So it's just like an annuity that never ends. Annuity that never ends. So in our modern financial life, it's hard to come up with any perpetuity. Nowadays, traditional banks, investment companies, brokerage houses, they don't sell perpetuities, okay? But if you look back in history, there are examples of perpetual government bonds. Many European government bonds, British government bonds, Dutch government bonds from Netherlands, many perpetual government bonds, which even now, until now, over the last 200 years, are paying the regular payments. Okay, so those are perpetuities, and the formula here is not part of Excel. So this is the only formula. This is the only formula where you probably have to take note of the formula. Okay, the formula here is that present value of a perpetuity, okay, is going to be equal to the regular PMT divided by that interest rate. Okay, there's the formula. And of course you can rearrange this formula, right? If you need to find the interest rate, it's of course going to be I became large again. It becomes large. Anyway, interest rate, let me just use rate, yes, is going to be equal to the PMT divided by the PV. Or if you need to find the PMTs, of course, that's going to be PV multiplied by the interest rate, right? So let's have a couple of examples. Let's say long time ago, your relative bought a perpetual government bond that pays, let's say that pays let's say $200, whatever, every year. Oh, let's say every quarter. Okay. And let's say the question is how, if the interest rates long time ago were, let's say, 7%, okay, how much do you think your relative paid for the bond? Okay, so as usual, I kind of keep repeating that the most important thing is for you to understand the question, right? Understand the question. So whenever you're on the exams, read the question, take a few seconds break, read the question again to make sure you understand everything correctly. All the rest of the calculations are going to be done by the computer. So the most important thing for you is to understand the question. So let's practice over here. Coming back to you guys, just any of you, just turn on the microphone, tell me, what do we need to calculate here? If the question is how much your relative paid for the bond originally at the beginning of the investment, a long time ago, which of these three numbers do we have to calculate? Is it PV, PMT, or the rate? How do you guys think?
The PV. PV.
Yes, thank you very much. That's the PV. And again, for perpetuity, that's the only subtopic where Excel doesn't give us any hints. We need to remember these formulas, okay? So PV here is going to be equal to the regular payments, which is 200, okay, divided by the interest rate, which is 7. Wait a minute here, okay? There's a bit of a mismatch here, so we need to keep that in mind for any kind of questions, not only the questions relating to perpetuity, okay? So notice that the regular payments are every quarter. How about the interest rates? Are they also quarterly rates? Well, there are so many different kinds of rates, right? There are so many different kinds of rates. So the convention, the industry standard for our class and also everywhere in the real world, okay, is that the rates are reported on an annual basis, okay? So we have a bit of a mismatch over here. The rates are annual, but the payments are quarterly. When you have any kind of mismatch like this, okay, the computer doesn't know, are the numbers supposed to be quarterly, or are the numbers supposed to be monthly, or are the numbers supposed to be annual? We need to understand the question and give the computer the correct numbers. Okay, so of course we also always need to match everything on the time scale. In this case, we need to match everything with quarterly time scale, because for any kind of question, for any kind of problem, we always match down to the shortest period, okay? We always match down to the shortest period. So for example, if you have monthly variables and some variables are annual, always come down to monthly for the calculations, okay? So in this case, we're going to come down to the quarterlies, in which case the interest rate is going to be the 7% divided by 4, because there are 4 quarters in a year. Okay, 7% divided by 4. Now everything matches, everything is in quarterly periods, and there it is. It looks like originally the relative paid over 11,400 for this investment. Okay, let's have a similar example where we change the question. The original investment was, let's say 15,000, whatever. Okay. How much was the interest rate a long time ago? So that's at the time of the purchase. So interest rate, let's see, we'll calculate the rate by dividing the regular payments by the original investment. So our rate is going to be equals the regular payments of 200 divided by the original investment. And we get something like 1.3%. But again, what we gave the computer is the quarterly payment. then the answer is also going to be quarterly. Okay, so the rate here is quarterly. The rate here is quarterly. So to show the annual rate, of course, we need to remember. It's a very easy mistake to make. This mistake is very easy to make on the exam. Sometimes even I make these mistakes because I just simply use the formulas that we all know. These formulas for perpetuities, or the Excel formulas for everything else. And I simply forget to multiply, right? But let's just make an agreement from now on that we will report interest rates on an annual basis, okay? And if you do understand the question, then this rate is quarterly. So we need to remember to multiply everything by 4 to have an annual rate of over 5.3%. Okay? So there's that. So that's a subtopic of perpetuities. Let me stop sharing for a minute if you have any questions, and I'll just have a look at my notes. What's my next subtopic to go over? You guys?
Professor,
Yes?
I was wondering that the rates need to be annual. What about the NPR? Should be annually, or is just okay to be monthly, whatever?
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point. So for NPR, let's say, for example, if the question is to calculate how long you have to wait for some kind of investment to have enough money in the future. So because there is no industry standard convention, there is no like agreement in the finance industry. For my particular class, for your particular exams that where you have to answer the questions about NPR, don't bother with converting any kind of NPR into annuals, okay? Let's just keep it simple. Give the Moodle, give your exams the number that you get from the formula. So for example, if we have monthly payments and you have to calculate NPR, so there is annual rate, monthly payments, you convert the rate into the monthly to do the calculations, then you need to find NPR. Let's say the NPR is 36, which means it's 36 months. Okay, if the question is how long you have to wait, you have to calculate NPR. Don't convert, please, NPR into annual. So if your answer is 36, don't give me an answer of 3 years. Okay, so just put the 36 into Moodle. That will be much easier. There is no one industry standard for the NPR. And so, for example, if your answer for NPR is, let's say, 30, just leave it as 30. We don't need to convert that into 2.5 years because it can really complicate things. What if your NPR is, let's say, 14 or, okay, even 17, right? 17 divided by 12, what is that in years? 1.733311182, what? For NPR, let's just leave the numbers as you get them from the formula. But for the rate, it's a very easy mistake to make. Even I sometimes forget to do it. But for the rate, if your calculations are on a monthly basis or on a quarterly basis, sometimes even daily basis, for the rate, for the answer of the rate, please remember to bring it back to the annual. So if your calculations are on the daily basis, you just hit equals, rate, open the brackets, do the calculations, everything's absolutely fine. But at the end, remember to multiply by 365. If you do on the monthly basis, at the end, remember to multiply by 12 or multiply by 4 for quarterly. Okay, thank you for the question. Any other questions?
I have, and this only for the perpetual or for all other types?
For all other types, yes, for all other types. So talking about the rate, the industry standard convention is not only in my class, it's I think everywhere in the world, unless there is a very remote country where this standard doesn't apply, but the industry standard global convention is to report rates on an annual basis. So yes, it's everywhere, not only for perpetual, for questions about perpetuity, for all our questions. Rates, let's report them on an annual basis. Okay, and let's have this interesting example. Let's say it's also kind of an annuity, but let's say yay, you win the lottery, and oh my god, yay, you win 10 million. Okay, you win 10 million. This invoice receipt lottery in Taiwan, right? The highest number is 10 million, right? But let's say you're like, oh my god, yes, and then you find out that they don't give you 10 million right now. I don't know how it happens with the actual invoice lottery in Taiwan, but for example, let's say they don't give you 10 million right now. Let's say they give you 10 million over the next 5 years. Okay, so let's say they pay you 2 million over the next 5 years. Okay, let's say you are wondering how much in real value are you actually winning right now. Okay, so they're gonna give you 2 million over the next 5 years. Right, so this is a timeline over here. That's year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. So you're wondering how much are you actually winning today, right now? Okay, so that would be, of course, PV, open the brackets, rate. We need the rate. Let's say the current market interest rate is, let's say 11%. Let's say 11%. So equals PV, rate is 11%, number of periods is 5, PMT is 2 million positive.
I'm sorry, you're not sharing the screen.
Oh, thank you. Forgot about that. Thank you. There it is. There's the timeline. So everything looks amazing. You won 10 million. But in reality, the value that you are receiving is kind of a little bit less. Let's see how much is that actual value. So that's 10 million. Besides the regular payments of 2 million, the lottery organizers are not going to pay you anything else. So besides these regular payments, there is no other future value that you're going to receive. So FV is 0. And type is 0 in this case because you receive these 2 millions at the end of each of the 5 years, not at the beginning. So in reality, the real value of what you've actually won here is nearly 7.4 million. Although nominally, you will receive 10 million over the next 5 years. Okay. Let's have one more example before we move on to a new topic, because this kind of interesting example, a bit complicated, but it's better to have complicated examples when practicing. Then the exams should actually be a little bit easier for you, right? So let's say, for example, you have 20,000 cash, okay, and you want to buy a house. So let's say this is US dollars rather than NT, so that it's kind of a substantial amount to buy a house. You already got 20,000, but you will, of course, need to borrow more from a bank, okay? Say the paperwork costs of a loan are going to be, say, 1.5% of the loan value, okay? And let's say your annual income is, say, 36,000, and the bank will only lend you such a maximum amount that you will need to pay only up to, let's say, 30% of your monthly income. Okay, the bank doesn't want to lend you too much money, because if you borrow too much compared to your actual salary, compared to your annual income, then there is a greater chance that you will not be able to pay back, right? So let's say they only lend you as much, so that the monthly payment is not going to be more than 30% of your monthly income. Okay, monthly payment for the loan, monthly payment for the mortgage is not going to exceed 30% of your monthly income, and your annual income is 36,000. Okay, let's say the mortgage rate is say 9%. The mortgage rate is 9%. What else do we need here? Let's say you will borrow for 25 years, let's say. Let's make it 20 years. Oh my God, a loan of 25 years seems a bit daunting. Seems a bit like too hard. Okay, 20 years. Let's say how much is the max you can borrow, and how much is the most expensive house, house you can buy. These two questions. Okay, so let's draw the timeline. It will make things a little bit more clear. Usually when you're kind of confused on the exam, try to draw a timeline. Let's zoom out a little bit so we have a bit of a longer timeline. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and okay, the bank will lend you such an amount that you will not need to pay over 30% of your monthly income. So you're going to repay the mortgage with monthly payments. PMT is going to be monthly. So this is the first month, it's not year, it's the second month, and so on. Okay. So you're going to repay these. So that's going to be a negative PMT for you. Negative because that's going to be cash outflow for you. Right? There will be many of these over the next 20 years. So 20 times 12 is going to be 240 months. Yes. I'm not going to go that far into the future. Just ... FV, in addition to paying these regular monthly payments to the bank, at the end of 20 years, do you have to pay anything else? Hopefully not. So FV is going to be equal to 0. And the interest rate per year, okay, so the annual interest rate is 9%. Okay. What's the question here? How much can I borrow? How much can I borrow? That's the amount of money I will receive right now from the bank, right? So it's actually PV we are looking for in the first question. Okay, and we'll come to the second question after we finish with the first. Okay, so it's the PV we are looking for. Okay, let's scroll up a little bit and remember that these are the 5 variables that we regularly have, and one of them is usually unknown. In this case, it's the PV that is unknown, and we need the rest to find the PV. So let's fill out the numbers to make the calculations easy. FV, as we said, 0, because besides the regular monthly mortgage payments, hopefully you'll not have to pay anything else to the bank at the end of 20 years. The rate, well, the problem says the rate is 9%. Maybe there's a bit of a mismatch. I'll come back to that. I just want to emphasize that mismatch to make everything clear. NPR, number of periods. There are monthly payments over 20 years, so that's going to be 20 times 12, yes? And the regular payment, how much am I going to pay at the maximum? So we're looking at the maximum size of the loan. Maximum, I'm going to be allowed to pay up to 30% of my monthly income, so that's going to be 30% of the annual income divided by 12. That's going to give me monthly income. So maximum PMT is going to be negative. Let's put negative sign here. Negative $900 every month. Okay. Okay, so this is going to be paid monthly. This is a number of months. This is annual rate. And the FV is just one amount, yes? So FV is just lump sum number, okay? So we see that there is a mismatch over here. Lump sum doesn't really count, it's just one amount. There is a mismatch between annuals and monthlies. We cannot enter these numbers into the formula because there is a mismatch. We need to fix for the mismatch. As I mentioned, always go for the smallest period. So we need to go to the monthly, which means we don't multiply the PMT up by 12 to go to the annual. Instead, we divide the annual by 12. So the rate that I need to enter is going to be equals 9 divided by 12. That'll be 0.75%. Now it's monthly as well. Everything matches. I can start using the formula. Equals PV, open the brackets, rate, NPR, PMT, FV is 0, and it's a regular annuity or ordinary annuity. BAM, the maximum amount I will be able to borrow from the bank is $130.46. Okay, but how much is the amount that? How much is the most expensive house that I can buy? Because I have my own cash as well. But out of my own cash, I'll need to pay some kind of paperwork cost, like changing the deed on the house to show the correct owner of the house, all those extra fees the governments collect for those paperworks. So that's, let's say, 1.5% of the loan value. So that's equals 0.015 times the loan amount. So on the exam, whenever you see something like this, it simply means there is not enough space to show the number. In that case, you can just increase the size of the cell. Everything is going to be fine. So this is the amount of money I can get from the bank. I have another 20,000 in cash, but out of that 20,000, I'm going to pay more than 1,500 as costs. So the total amount, the most expensive house that I can buy is the amount I get from the bank plus my original cash of 20,000 minus the paperwork costs. Most expensive house I can buy costs $118,530. Okay, so the questions can be sometimes kind of tricky, kind of a lot of text. You gotta read it for a while. Most important thing, make sure you understand the question. Everything else is a relatively easy calculation. Okay. Now, let's change it a little bit to emphasize the need to remember to multiply into annuals when we look at rate. Okay, so let's change it a little bit. Let's say the bank gives you $100,030.46, and your regular payments are going to be $900. Okay, and the question is, how much is the interest rate that the bank charges you? Okay, this was $130.46. Okay, in this case, equals rate, open the brackets, number of periods in months, 240 months, the PMT in monthly payments, that's $900 negative. PV is what you're going to receive right now from the bank, $130,030.46. FV is 0 and type is 0 as well. Ignore the guess. Okay, and as you see, let's show the details. The rate is 0.75%, but remember this is monthly because everything is matched. As we said, for our class, let's report annual rates. So for the answer on the exam, we should have annual rates. So your actual answer is going to be this times 12, which is, as in our example, 9%, not 0.75%. So remember to convert the rates into annuals whenever your original calculation for the rate is not annual. Okay, so there's that. We have 2 small subtopics left for today. Okay, let me come back to Google Meet. Now, any questions? Let's go for a 5 minutes break. We have 2 more subtopics for after the break. Yes.
Sorry, could you please upload the Excel file after class?
Yes, thanks for reminding. I'll put it on Moodle. So let's go for a break.